Howdy, partner, and welcome to TomHanksgiving. I'm your host, Elvis, and today we are talking about 1993's Philadelphia. Philadelphia being subject to some weightier issues. Some of the conversations at the podcast today get a little bit more heavier, a little crunchier, so just fair warning up front with that. Although we try to keep it light, there's obviously a lot to talk about with this movie, with the wonderful filmmaking behind it, the incredible performances, as well as some of the more mature subjects. But I think that's all I've got for you up front this week, talking to Joe Hood from Hoodworks and many other wonderful things. And yeah, let's get into it. Here we go. Philadelphia. All right, today we're talking here with Mr. Joe Hood.
How's it going? How's it going, Elvis?
Hoodworks.
Yeah.
And former BuzzFeed comrade.
Yes. In the trenches.
And yeah, and I mean, we're here today to talk about 1993's Philadelphia, starring, of course, Tom Hanks, Denzel Washington. Got some Antonio Banderas in there, Mary Steenburgen.
Yes.
And Dowd.
Unrecognizably so.
Countless others. This is a big supporting cast. And directed by Jonathan Demme of Silence of the Lambs fame. And one of the reasons you're here specifically for this episode.
Yes, I was trying to get on this That Thing You Do podcast, and then he found out that I interned for Jonathan Demme in college. And when I told him that there was a binder with Tom Hanks' phone number on it, I was signed up for this podcast.
And you did bring that binder here today, correct?
I did not.
What?
I did not.
What do you do? That's the whole reason you're
This
here.
was before Instagram, otherwise I would have been on my account. But
well, okay, so you did. So you got to intern, and what was he working on when you worked with
So this
him?
was 2010, and they were doing a master builder. So he had just come off of doing A Gifted Man's first season.
Okay.
He executive produced that, did the pilot, and so then we were reading scripts for new projects. He was finishing up I'm Carolyn Parker, this documentary on Katrina, and he was starting a master builder. So I was on set for that. That was like the reboot of Dinner with Andre, like the same people.
Oh, yeah. And how is Mr. Jonathan Demme in person?
Jonathan Demme is a very interesting man. You see him, and he's wearing like a ponytail with like disheveled hair and like a scarf and like glasses that crooked, bent up. So he's definitely like an artist type.
I like that he's crafted a look for himself.
Yes, he has.
That's impressive.
Yes.
You never it never extended to meeting Hanks, though.
Never extended to meeting Hanks because he wasn't doing as many projects as he used to. If they were producing more bigger movies, Tom Hanks would have been in there producing with them.
But you did say that you had another connection in your hometown?
Yes, so I have had the pleasure of knowing Tom Hanks was in the vicinity before because his brother is a professor at University of Illinois, where I grew up. So there's always been this mythical Larry Hanks running around teaching like agricultural engineering.
Oh, we weren't in I was in the wrong
I believe
class, I guess.
Yeah, no, right.
That's cool. And I mean, obviously you're here to talk about the movie too.
Oh, absolutely.
I just thought that was a neat connection,
yeah.
And we're very happy to have you.
While we're on connections, I also have a connection to the other star of this film, Denzel.
Oh yeah, DW.
Yeah, DW. So went to NYU and had a class with his daughter and Bono's daughter. So she sat right behind me.
Him and Bono got together and had a daughter?
No. Bono's daughter separately, and Denzel's daughter. It was an easy class, so
yeah,
it was popular.
Man.
Yeah, and so a few times.
You ever be like, "Hey, your dads are cool," or is that lame? You wouldn't have done that.
Bono's daughter never showed up except for like the first week.
Big surprise.
And then. Yeah, I mean, Denzel came to visit, though, a few times for, like, Parents' Weekend and stuff, so, yeah.
And you were like, this is my favorite of your movies.
It wasn't up there. I mean, I had
The
seen
Equalizer.
Yeah, the Equalizer. That's what
we were talking about during the movie.
Yeah.
We just watched it. We were talking about it.
If this was after Equalizer had come out, I definitely would have gone up and said something to it.
Oh, it's the perfect power fantasy movie for dads.
Yeah.
The Equalizer. Which is great. But no, let's get into some Philadelphia stuff. You want to give us like the briefest of summaries?
Yes.
Can I throw that on you?
Yeah. So Philadelphia is a pretty progressive courtroom drama about a lawyer who is hiding the fact that he has AIDS from his employers, and then he files a wrongful termination suit against them when they fire him suddenly.
Yeah. Well, succinct summary. You're good at this.
Yeah, you know.
He's making his way to claming that thing you do. Like,
I'm gonna find all Tom Hanks movies I have connections to, and like I'm weasel my way back.
But yeah, the thing that this movie is like, it's famous for, or well, I mean, it's notable for being, the thing Jonathan Demme did right after winning Best Picture with Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
It's notable for Tom Hanks getting his first Oscar for Best Performance. Bruce Springsteen got an Oscar for the original song he wrote. And obviously it came out at a time where like homosexuality and AIDS especially was still this like really insanely taboo topic, and a lot of discrimination going on. And it's crazy to think how recent that, or how many changes the world has gone through with this. Because like now this movie is remembered for, I think on the popular culture standpoint, is like, oh, this is the movie where Tom Hanks has AIDS.
Yeah.
Like that's it in the...
Where before it was, this is the movie where the guy has AIDS.
Yeah.
And that was, I mean, the misinformation that's what big thing that was represented is like just how much people didn't understand. They didn't know how people were catching it. Even people who had it didn't know how they caught it. People in the room with them were afraid that if he touched their cigars, it would take it home to his baby.
Which is, there's a lot of great details in this movie about that, and like we'll get into specific choices in the filmmaking later. But yeah, just on the whole, it's. I have to wonder if this movie, because of the strides of progress we've made in the decades since, like, has it's not become obsolete, but it's almost like it was directly attacking the issues of the time, so it's kind of its time. It's
of its time, and it's almost like more offensive to watch now, right?
Yeah.
It's like harder to hear them say some things because you're like, wow, the ignorance is so real.
Yeah, and it's so close to where we are.
Exactly.
I mean, like, the big crux of the movie is Denzel's character is openly prejudiced towards homosexuals.
Yeah.
And he overcomes, it's his character arc here, but like it's hard because we're supposed to like this guy, and but I think that was the perfect way to go in 1993, because it's like, this is how we're going to get the common people to relate to this issue.
It's the classic reluctant hero, but just with the social issue, which is pretty interesting.
So I think it's a really powerful stuff. They kind of good confluence of all the energies and put together a lot of things. I read a rumor right before we started watching, and this is IMDb, so who knows if it's actually realistic. But obviously, when they went with Tom Hanks for casting the lead character, Andrew Beckett, they kind of wanted to go with, here's kind of a safe choice. Audiences will recognize, they'll empathize with Hanks because we've known him from all these comedy movies all these years. So like, there's kind of every time you have a casting situation, yeah, I mean, you cast for a reason, but like this is part of the reason you always cast Hanks. It's like there's this immediate likability and this warmth. But what I found and this again maybe is speculation, but apparently they were looking at people like Bill Murray or someone lighter for the Denzel role, which to me seems shocking because I feel like a huge motivator and kind of the racial discrimination parallel.
Yeah, so that wouldn't have been a play, you're saying?
Yeah, which seems like that's what seems so obvious in retrospect, but like they would have gone completely different direction. Because I think it's specifically that library scene where it just hits home that issue.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that really does the whole thing of making his arc make a lot more sense, It doesn't just seem like social justice-y. It's like there's actually like common struggle there.
Yeah, he can. I mean, that's in that library scene. He finally sees the humanity, and then it kind of just. I mean, it's not that he didn't see him as a human before, but like, he relates to him, and it's kind of what builds, or at least starts the arc. It's like, yeah. It gets to that point where it's like really cringeworthy when the mom says, "I didn't raise my kids to be the back of the bus." So I think this movie does like really well handled material with the racial discrimination and the homosexuality discrimination parallels, and then it's really obtuse in places.
It is, but then It's a good point that sometimes it was spot on, though. Like, I mean, like we said, this wasn't that long ago. But even that being said, there was the time where Denzel was talking to his wife, how many gay people do you know? I don't know any. And she's like, yeah, you do.
Yeah.
You know, we know like this person, this person,
Teresa,
this person. Yeah, Aunt Teresa. And he had no idea. I still remember that conversation with my parents.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, and that was 2000 something, you know? Like,
it's crazy, yeah, because
everyone has that moment.
What was it? Obama,
where they humanize it.
Was, ran a campaign in 2008 on marriages between a man and a woman. It's crazy how recent that was. And, I mean, it's amazing how far we've come.
That's what's interesting, too, is, like, that it did take so long after this movie came out in 1993. Because, like, the relationship Andrew Beckett had with his mother was incredibly progressive.
Yes.
From the get-go, his parents knew and were supportive that he had AIDS and that he was hiding it from his employers.
Yeah.
And that he was going through, living with a man openly, all of that stuff. So that is quite insane to me. I mean, it was a big city. And that's the other thing about AIDS, right, is that it was a big city disease until the 90s. But that, to me, was, like, I still know parents that can't handle it. Like,
I mean, that's the thing. Like, some of these cringiest moments in this movie, it's like, it's also terrible to hear because, like, this is still happening.
Yeah, exactly. Which we probably don't give enough credence to. That I mean, with what's going on with presidential elections and campaigns, there's still people running on the platform to stop that.
Yeah, to regress the progress we've made. Yeah. And, I mean, it's frustrating.
They should watch Philadelphia.
They should watch Philadelphia. I mean, and that's why I think this movie was so important in its time, because I feel like you're right. It took a long time for us to get even as far as we have, or even as far as like
they were in the movie.
So they were in the movie, which it's not ubiquitous yet, but it feels like this was the first push where, because like apparently in all the advertisements it was a courtroom drama. They hid the fact that it was about AIDS.
Interesting.
So I'm sure it was people like, word of mouth gets around. It's like, oh, this is the movie about AIDS. Yeah. But it became this whole big social issue. And I felt like this was one of the first few films to, at least in the mainstream, handle it so carefully and kind of introduce this as a...
Well, yeah, I mean, just the testament that they did the trailers like that is a testament to how careful they were. I mean, they knew that they couldn't just... They knew the time.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't have built this movie... as it is now, is Tom Hanks with AIDS.
Yeah, and I mean, that is an expensive movie for a risk like that.
Yeah, and you can
That's
see
a big movie.
The money being used in this movie. Some of the camera shots are really complicated. The extras, the background,
the courtroom
are insane. The courtroom,
that's like a state courtroom.
It's a real courtroom.
Yeah, that's a very nice courtroom. That's like a state Supreme Court, maybe. That's a very nice room. Yeah. And the extras, remember we were talking about that?
Yeah, the background work in this movie is phenomenal. They had Dr. J
at a basketball game with the full game going on, full of extras, and a camera move through the box.
Like, in a single shot. That was insane.
I mean, like, half of the game is not in those seats, because you are. Like, that's quite the budget.
Yeah, so I mean, they have crazy background stuff like that going on, but even like the smaller stuff, like I kept noticing in the hospital, like, oh, there's a little girl talking and playing with the doctor in the background. It's like there's so much life there. Like they clearly gave her something to do, and yet, like I didn't notice it until this time I watched it, and it's like, well done with creating like a lively world. And I think that kind of comes from some of the filmmaking techniques he uses at the very beginning with. Kind of like this almost cinema verite doc style where it's like we just see citizens of Philadelphia waving at the camera, completely breaking the fourth wall. Yeah. And I feel like that really introduces us into like this is a real world. This is the real world. Yeah. And I really think that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I actually found myself thinking again through this was like, wait, was this a true story or not? Because they had a lot of like specific. I mean, they used the passage of time like a documentary would, where like they skipped to specific moments, or they would recreate moments where like an incident happened that they needed to talk about for legal discourse. So like it really did feel to me like it could have been a true story in the fact that there was like so much life in this guy's life before and after the case, and that it did like ruin his life.
Yeah, I agree. There's a livelihood to the reality, and I think that was an important choice.
And that comes back to camera too, the reality aspect. Half of the shots that we were like, wow, that's quite a weird close-up. That's, it's super wide, or it's like tilted, or it's like blurry. It was all POV shots.
Yeah, and in fact, Demi is known for his the character staring directly at the camera. There's very little like over the shoulder shot, reverse
Yes.
shot bullshit. Because I usually just can't stand that. But
Really?
I mean, sometimes it's like you gotta use it, but it's
the style of the 2000s, though.
It's often
this
the
is
least
90s style.
Yeah, but this isn't the 90s style. This is not a usual technique to use.
It's not, but I'm saying like the less over the shoulders. There's no dirties in like a lot of movies before like we went to super widescreen.
Yeah, I mean that's probably true. But I don't know. It's usually used in a very lazy way. Is how I feel about it. But for this, like, I noticed it. It was very striking when he used the technique in Silence of the Lambs, because when Clarice and Lecter like are looking directly at the camera, it just has this unnerving, unsettling thing that is perfect for the movie.
It makes it so much more dramatic when you jump in too. For the distance of their stares, you can feel them staring more intently as you move in.
And we like just remove the wall between them in that scene, and then
you feel like a killer is staring at you.
Yeah, so he uses the same technique in this movie. How does it, which we just kind of talked about, but how did it work for you?
It made me know from the first time we saw the partners that they were villainous. Right? Didn't it kind of get that feel to you?
Yeah.
Because like it was just you don't feel as it's more unsettling.
That's where it works like in the same Lecter way.
Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
when you meet the ancient white guy super rulers of the lawyer company, the senior partners.
Jason Robards, class actor there.
Oh yeah. It just has that same unsettling quality where it's like. Yeah, distances you, but they continue to use it for these more intimate scenes between, like mostly I think Denzel and Hanks, but also Hanks and Banderas.
Also, Hanks and the prosecutor. I think once it gets into the film, it's more to show the weakness that he has. So it's like softer and a little softer, so that he's like getting sicker and sicker.
Yeah, I mean that courtroom scene where Mary Steenburgen is just taking him down. It's like we start to get to the canted angles, and like at that point we had stopped talking entirely for about 10 minutes because it's such a captivating scene.
Yeah, and did you realize the sound drops out?
Yeah, it's so well done. Like that scene, and actually the firing scene, I'm so impressed with the camera work and the performances.
Yes.
Because you just feel like he's so far away.
There's a perfect desk, right?
Yeah, that desk was insane. He's so far away.
And he didn't think anything of it. Yeah. Which says a lot about, like...
He's confident. Like, why would he?
Well, also just the hierarchy of those guys. The power difference there, So, like, he was powerless.
Mm-hmm. And just like the way the camera pushes in as he's slowly realizing he's being fired. It's so sinister. It's so creeping. And then we get like, this loss of power, which you're saying how weak he is with the ending of the courtroom scene before he basically goes to the hospital for the remainder of the movie. Very impressive camera work. Sometimes
mess around.
At first, I found the looking into the lens Lecter-esque shots he used unsettling, but it totally works the opposite way. I think as we go through the movie, because he also has a lot of which we slightly touched upon emphasis on close-ups, and he uses close-ups really well because it's always about like. Am I being touched? Is the AIDS virus going to transfer to me? And I think the other thing is when your actor's talking directly to camera, they're talking directly to us.
Yeah.
And we are the jury in this movie.
Yeah.
And so when we see like the hands touching, like we're thinking like, that's exactly what the frame of mind for your average Joe was back in the 90s. It's like, could this happen to me? This is how it transfers. And I love how that arc goes where at the beginning of the movie, Denzel's freaking out that he touched a wrapped cigar on his desk, and then he willingly puts his mask back on his mouth.
Yeah.
It's great stuff. A lot of great detail, and there's like not a lot of attention put to that.
Visual way to do it.
This is a courtroom movie. I mean, the most of it is, and it's hard to make a courtroom interesting. And this might be the best film courtroom scene, at least that I can call to memory.
For me, it's always going to be A Few Good Men. I think.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a different style of like cuts and less camera moves, right?
Yeah, but the camera moves are there's such a sense of space in this courtroom, and I love that.
For me, that's what I was gonna say. Going back to like the Demi style, it's like We said that he does like the close-ups where you're looking into camera, but then the rest of his close-ups are the very drama-y, like he doesn't do dirty. It's like one person's face, 45 degrees, like the cigar, you know, like when he's noticing it, it's like you're seeing like almost like side view of them like notice it real fast, real close, and then they like react, go back to a wide. But it's very, in that sense, and then in the sense that he uses extras to motivate camera moves, is very old-fashioned Hollywood to me.
I like it a lot.
Yeah, but that's like one of the reasons I like Martin Scorsese. You know, it's like motivated camera moves based on action in business is quick sell everywhere. Like there's a scene where I think it's his dad walks into the courtroom and it follows him in over his shoulder. He comes out of the bathroom, walks in, follows him out of the bathroom through the courtroom, flies over him, and then we're back up top. It's
it's like it's a great scene or a great. It's like a scene transition. Which there's a couple in this movie that are garbage.
Yes, yeah, that's very big, drastic.
That is a fantastic old Hollywood scene transition, and the opposite is like this movie. We remarked as we were watching it. It doesn't quite escape the '80s because it's we're just getting out of there with like some of the haircuts and the fashion.
Yes,
and it certainly didn't leave the 90s unscathed with some of these scene transitions. There's like two in the movie where it's like a complete flip, and it's like, and then there's at least one Star Wars style screen wipe. It's bizarre. Like it makes it stands out like a sore thumb.
What also stands out to me is like, so we talked about like how progressive it was. Technology was like a big part of this movie, right? His first case was about like a tech. The biggest case at their firm was like a tech copyright thing. So tech must have been really sexy at the time. Denzel had a cell phone that was really advanced. Tom Hanks had a laptop in 1993.
He did.
Which is insane. It was so new that it didn't even have an operating system on it. I think it helped sell the whole like hotshot lawyerishness to have them like on the cutting edge of like, you know.
It's not only the biggest client, it's the biggest client in
the biggest industry at the time.
Exactly.
You know? Yeah.
And he like knows his shit. He's on two different computers. He's working without an operating system.
He's handling their biggest case.
Yeah,
you know,
he really is the hotshot lawyer.
Yeah, exactly. It really adds to that.
And again, they're not really drawing attention to it in this very subtle, fantastic way where it's like all the evidence is there, but they're not going to spell it out. Like he is a good lawyer.
Like we see him in his law offices hanging out with the partners more than we see him practicing law.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, there's a few times where he's studying, but it's always like after hours or like at home or after the case has started. But yeah, they do a good job of just establishing him as like high-rising lawyer because of his responsibilities and how he works the upper management, right?
Yeah, and his attitude. Obviously, we get into once the movie is underway, we get into like his beliefs and like what he admired about his superiors is kind of a great monologue. But no, I love the subtlety actually used in this movie, and I think we get that in the camera work outside of this awful scene transitions. Yeah. Like, when's the last time you saw a movie do anything like that?
Literally Star Wars, I think. I don't think anyone liked it but Star Wars.
But no, I mean, like, the
flip one?
The flip one. Like, what the fuck was that?
That's like a cartoon transition to me. That's like on TV, like Saturday morning, like
yeah, but I mean, but even that makes a little bit more sense. Like, I
no, that's what I'm saying. It makes sense.
It's weird. There was an insert shot of a punny building called Condemnation.
Yes, that was great. So it was the Philadelphian citizens' great opening music video to this song, to the Springsteen song, and then for half the length of any other clip, they had a quick condemnation ad, and that's their only hint that it might have gay content coming up in the movie in the first 5-10 minutes.
I already talked about how there was maybe this talk that they weren't going to cast him, and they were going to go with like a Bill Maher or anybody who was a white guy. It was like a crazy idea to me.
Yeah.
What'd you think?
To me, this was Denzel's most Will Smithy role. Does that make sense? Like the hot shottiest, like
I can see what you're saying.
Like I'm trying to think of a good example of like it's like him as like a Hitch or something. You know, like he's just overly confident.
He's very likable.
And then we find out at the end that he's overly confident because he has some insecurities, right?
Yeah.
Which is like a great arc for a character, but I'm not used to seeing him be such a fast talker. I'm used to him seeing more of a smooth talker.
I think it's the mustache that helps too.
The mustache helps. Like just how many times he said Iris's name, his assistant.
Yes.
Iris, did you get that? Iris, are you listening to me? And she'd be like answering. It's like he was on it too. It was like coked up almost.
Right. I mean, it's
Johnny Cochran is how I described it when we were watching.
Right, which makes sense though, because like this is still the '90s, and that's the most.
Had that happened? That hadn't happened yet.
It was
94.
90. Okay, so I guess this maybe Johnny Cochran modeled his performance on Denzel.
That's funny.
I mean, who wouldn't?
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I it's certainly not the typical Denzel role, especially nowadays. But I really liked it.
I mean, I guess it was. I'm trying to think of what his contemporary roles were at the time. Like Pelican Brief was around then, so he was used to being like a lawyer. But even in that, he's more of like a laid back, smoother kind of dude. He's a law student, right? No, he's not. He's a professor of hers, I think. But it's much more like reserved character. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure that was around the same time. Yeah, that was 93 as well. Another crime drama court case.
Yeah, but he's great in this movie, I would say. I think, again, I keep coming back to like the subtlety of the camera work, but I think it's there in the performances too. Like there's a lot of like little funny business things that really like give life to it. And I had to call out while we were watching it. There's this moment where he's holding, or his baby is just born, and he's trying to take a picture because, of course, he has to load film into a camera because it's the 90s. But he can't do it, so his wife takes it from literally just having given birth and is holding their child and puts the film in properly so he can take it. I just love that dynamic. And then, like, we cut, like, 2 scenes later, and he's passed out, and she's still holding the baby.
Yeah.
And, like, there's something that I love that.
He like worked himself into a frenzy. It's just
it tells you about his character. It's funny and it's subtle. It's not over the top. And I mean, this is a good movie for reaction shots too.
Yeah.
So much of the acting is watching other people talk.
And their pickups. It's old Hollywood style, so that's like impressive. Mm-hmm. And like I said before, Demi doesn't rehearse with actors.
That's insane.
Like what he does is he gets his cast and they do a table read or two, maybe on location, but it's like a read sitting at location,
not blocking.
Yeah, and then the actors get ready on their own and then come to set and they run it a few times.
I mean,
they get it.
There's thousands of different directing styles, and I mean, when you hire a cast this good,
it's fascinating directing style for when you're shooting on film, though. To me,
yeah. Oh my god, I can't even think about that. Like to get that single camera move from the basketball court and everything.
Yes.
Impressive stuff.
Yes.
Like Demi, he runs his ship tightly.
Yes, he does.
Oh man. What would you say is your favorite Denzel scene?
My favorite Denzel scene. It's the hardest one to watch, but definitely the one in the Dwayne Reed store when he gets solicited by the basketball player.
Yeah.
Because like he's so proud of what he's doing for the case, and you think it's because he's like helping gay rights, but then you see that he's still not there yet, you know?
Yeah.
And it's too close to home for him that people might think he's gay, that he's helping. He almost wants to stop helping.
And that scene comes off like right. I think that's after the scene in the bar where he's on TV and all like the.
Yeah, he's already defended people for like, but even in that defense, right? He said
like,
those people make me sick, but
yeah, I find it disgusting.
The law has been broken.
Yeah, I think the scene. I think, his most impressive stuff is, like, when it's hard to watch him, even though he's our hero.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, God, we used to be like that. Or, like, at least popular opinion used to be like that. Some of us
Or it's hard to change, you know? Like,
yeah.
I mean, he really was trying the best he could for a long time. But like I said before, and, like, what that scene shows, it's hard to tell if he's doing it because he knows it's right or because he wants to change.
I mean, do you believe that it's... Well, I mean, I certainly believe that in the beginning of the movie, he doesn't want to change.
Yeah.
He's doing it because he believes in the law.
Yeah.
So I do think he thinks it's right.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's sometimes hard to tell if that's the only reason he's doing it, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think by the end of the movie, though, he's changed, for sure.
Yeah, but I don't know. The changing wasn't really until the litigator started calling into question, like, that it was moral choices that got him there, right? Which is a great swing.
Yeah. Once they started calling out, and it would stop being about AIDS, and it started being about homosexuality, and that
then he realized that's exactly what he was doing.
Yeah, right? And that's when he started attacking the witnesses, like questioning their sexuality, because it became the subtext became the text at that point.
Yeah, and also, I mean, if I was a lawyer, that would have been the first question I asked, because how are you going to prove that they're discriminatory if you don't know if they're not that, right?
Well, I mean...
You need to establish that they're straight to prove that they could discriminate. So, I mean, like, it makes sense that they used it very dramatically in the movie as like I've had it with this, the subtext needs to come up, but really, as far as, like, legal discourse goes, I feel like that would be... Well, it goes back to, we were talking about how weird it is that you swear in on a Bible, right?
Yeah.
And so you still swear in on a Bible in this time in history, but the Bible doesn't say you can be gay. So it's like, why is the Bible there if precedent is set that it's illegal to do that?
That's always bothered me in a general sense, but you're right, in a very specific sense.
In this movie, it really bothered me. Yeah, I was just like, that's just very weird.
And that's the thing they really do. It's not just a movie convention anymore.
No, they really do that.
That's bizarre to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to. You have to be sworn in. So
I get the oath.
You know when you can be prosecuted for what you say. You know, so there's a decider in the time, but there's no reason it needs to be on a Bible.
Yeah, like the Constitution, maybe, or a flag.
Yeah, that always made more sense to me. Like swear on the Constitution, because like that's the laws you're breaking.
Yeah,
like
the laws of the Bible.
Half people don't care if they break the laws of the Bible.
No,
like, and then why would you not lie if that's what you're... I don't know. It's very interesting.
Yeah,
but in this movie especially, it was like, I don't know if they realized that was there, but it's like they said, even one of the things, do you think it's wrong? Read your Bible. And then that was the only person we saw sworn in, I think, was Andy Beckett. At least there was a big Y. They made a big deal of that swearing.
Mm-hmm. It's a really well made movie.
Unfortunately, all the motivations and stuff are very timely right now with what's going on with like Donald Trump and stuff.
Yeah,
it's a lot of the same emotions.
Well, I think that's
the fear that they're talking about. What did Denzel say? That it comes down to a fear of like homosexuals. That's half of...
Yeah, a fear of homosexuality, a fear of misunderstanding. I feel like sort of like how quote-unquote racism was solved, like in the 80s, 90s range. Like, this is like the start of like, oh, we've solved homosexuality. But really, we just kind of like...
brushed under the rug.
Brushed a lot of the bad things under the rug. And it's
like, people can have those thoughts, they just can't say them.
Yeah, and then
then people get frustrated and want to say them louder.
Yeah, and like the people feel like, oh, but this is my rights, then because they fundamentally misunderstand the Constitution and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's so you're saying this movie has a lot of timely things. Do you think that this is a movie that plays? How does it play to a modern audience?
Well, that's what's interesting too. Is like the things that made it, that helped it, like the fact that the technology was cutting edge and stuff like that. Those are the things that make it not play as well now. It's not like the story doesn't play as well. There's some states where they probably haven't even heard of things like this yet. You know what I mean? There's some pockets of America where this would be a very timely story.
It's frustrating to think about that.
There are, I mean, there's people who are getting in trouble for denying marriage licenses to people in states where you can get married. So, like, there are people that would watch this and be like, this is ludicrous, you know? Like, so I think it still definitely plays. There's just a few stylistic things, like the technology and the clothes, that do take you out. It's like watching the first season of Friends versus the fifth season of Friends. It's a little easier to stomach.
Right. But, I mean, at the same point, it's very much a period of its time, too, where it feels like, if you watch it now, it's almost like a period piece. So I think it kind of works.
Yeah.
The thing that stands out to me is going to be those scene transitions.
Yeah. But as a period piece, it's very interesting because like not a lot of period pieces are those issues still day to day talked about in politics.
Takes a little bit out of you. It's a draining movie. It's because the funny thing is when we did the first TomHanksgiving holiday celebration before it was a podcast, we had a bunch of friends come over when I was living in Chicago, and we were like, all right, we're going to marathon all the Hanks movies we can in this day, and we started with, like, some fun ones, like Big, Joe vs. the Volcano, and then eventually we just, like, land on, we'll watch Philadelphia.
Still Philadelphia.
Everybody left after that.
That's hilarious.
Because, I mean, nobody disliked it, but it's so heavy.
Yeah.
So we're going to try and lighten that up a little bit with, let's talk about the man himself. Let's talk about Tom
Mr.
Hanks. This is the one he won the Oscar for.
Yeah, so this was the first Oscar. What was the next one? Forrest Gump, right?
Yeah, he was nominated for performance for Big.
Which was like 80-something.
88.
88.
And then 93, he wins it for Andrew Beckett in Philadelphia.
And became producing partners with Jonathan Demme ever since.
Yes. And then he won his second Academy Award for Forrest Gump the next year. Wow. And I would definitely say... no spoilers to our eventual Forrest Gump episode, but I think the performance is stronger in this one.
Than in Forrest Gump?
I do.
Really? I mean, this was, again, going back to, like, old Hollywood, like, stagey. There were a few scenes that were very, very dramatized in this that you wouldn't find in like a Forrest Gump, right?
Yes, I mean
The dancing with the IV and the lights flashing.
I wanted to bring that up. The opera scene where he's dancing, like I kind of like the intensity of it, but the performance is a little showy.
That's what I'm saying. There were a few scenes that were a little showy. I don't know if that was him trying to be homosexual. If that's too stereotypical for me to say. I don't read it that way, but I could see what you're saying. Like I don't know if that's where he was going or not, but like
judging from the context of the film, it feels like that scene had to be as heightened as it was because it leaves such an impression on Denzel's character.
Well,
the music is still carrying. What was
the impression when he tried to go back to the door when he double taked? What was that?
What I saw was that he
thought he was going to kill himself or something.
Well, no, he just recognizes how fragile this guy is.
Oh, I got you.
And it's like he's lost it. He's lost the will.
Yeah.
And he's so in pain.
He didn't want to leave. He didn't know he should be leaving.
But he also was like, I'm so uncomfortable with this still.
Yeah.
Which is why he tries to go back. And then why?
And that's why I read it as him showing this being homosexual because it did off-put Denzel. He was like, this is weird.
I mean, yeah, I think it's kind of. I took it
asking him personal questions and then he dove into that.
Yeah. I took it more of as he's uncomfortable because it's like the raw humanity of someone dying in front of you.
Yeah.
I could see what you're saying, certainly with the specific choice to the opera, but I think it works as a confluence of both.
Yeah.
But I love the touch that the opera music still plays over the film as he's checking on his loved ones, making sure they're alive, and just holding onto them tight because he's like seeing what can happen.
Yeah.
But to go back to the initial point, that like the performance is fine, but it's a little showy.
Yeah, and him translating the whole song in Italian was like it just was much more showy than the rest of his performance.
Yeah.
There was another scene kind of like that. The Antonio Banderas one where he snaps the book away. I thought that one was a little like.
I like this because
Antonio Banderas did better than he did. I just thought it was like a little.
I don't know. I liked his performance because he's petulant at that point. It's kind of like he's putting off.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't want to deal with the fact that he's dying. And he kind of jokingly brings up that, like, yeah, maybe we'll do my last will and testament. And then the fact that Banderas comes back with, like, yeah, I think that's a good idea. So I feel like he is intentionally overacting when the book thing happens. He's being
to
a
try
little
to
snob.
Sound like cool, like seem like he's fine.
Yeah, it's a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
That's the way I would defend that scene. The show, again, I don't think anything's wrong with the showiness. It just doesn't work for me as much. But the rest of the movie, the subtlety of the performance, how quiet he is, like so much of the courtroom scene is just him listening.
Yeah.
But when he gets up and how vulnerable he feels,
he's a different character by the time they get to the trial.
Yeah.
Right. So before he's like helping to like move the story along, and then they get to the trial, and he's much more just, he's letting it unfold before him.
Yeah.
But going into the trial beforehand, you could tell how smart he was just from like the stares he was giving people. Like the scene where he tries to go sign Denzel is a great scene.
Yes.
Like his performance in that is just fantastic.
Love it.
When he sees him in the library, did you find a lawyer? I'm a lawyer. Great line, great delivery. No time wasted. He goes right back to work. You know, you can tell how smart and motivated this guy is.
You can see how he knows exactly how Denzel and everybody else around him feels about him.
Yeah.
And he's conflicted, but he's like still that kind of self-righteous guy he was from the beginning.
Yeah.
So he's like, no, I'm going to make sure.
He still has some fight in him.
Yeah. And that's, I think, what's so devastating about this performance is you see that fight die. And I think the last time we see it is actually during the showy opera thing. Like, I think that's his kind of surrender.
Yeah.
Because the last time he has any real fight is probably the petulance with Banderas, where at that point it's come down to this like little kid's like, I don't want to do that.
I think visually represented to me the last fight was the witness stand. Like literally, we saw the last energy leave him.
Well, I suppose that's true. But I think at that point he's lost it. Like, I mean, I guess maybe it's depleting him.
Yeah.
But, and maybe we're.
But his answers are still a little, they still have some of that like punch in them.
Yeah, it's not that he's given up. I guess it's right. But either way, you're seeing this like slowly fade out of him, and like I think that's kind of like, I mean, it's a perfect parallel with him actually dying. Is just seeing this element of him just suffer.
Yeah.
And it works really well. Like, and there's a piece I pulled out That's just it's so. There's again the subtlety, the small quiet moments when the very beginning of the movie where he's at the hospital and he sees the person who's clearly sick being tended to by the doctor, and just the cutaway shot, and he just puts up his headphones, like tuning this all out.
Yeah,
he knows it's weighing on his conscience, and he's not dealing with it.
Yeah. And then he calls his mom, and he just diffuses, like, how are you doing? Oh, nothing. More importantly, how are you doing?
Yeah.
Cuts. That's how he talks to his parents about it, too.
Because obviously at that point he's lying. He knows what's going on or what's happening.
They know what's going on. Remember, she starts crying.
Yeah. Oh, God. It's a harrowing movie.
The mom did a great job.
Yes.
Really, really good job.
I think that's why they focused on her instead of the dad.
Yeah, the dad was less emotive.
I mean, he was there, but, like, we didn't need both of them. I like the mom a lot.
I mean, I think it goes back to, like, what we're saying, how progressive is the parents if they're together and supportive.
Yeah.
That's insane. Like, it's much more common story for, like, one parent to, like, be supportive.
Yeah, which is strange, too, because, like, that beginning of that scene where he's kind of talking to his family about how the trial's going to go down, it almost reads a little bit like his siblings are a little judgmental. Like, you're doing this to us.
I think that was just poor acting. That was a weird scene, right? And thank you, brother. Oh, little half brother, I got you. It was a lot of exposition. That was like we joked during it. That was one of the scenes they might have wanted to rehearse.
Yeah, that's where you felt the lack of rehearsal.
Yeah,
and I think like that. Yeah, I mean that's maybe the one scene that really suffers from that, especially. But
it should have been a powerful scene.
Yeah, and especially because we got the impression, we knew this was his family from the
we knew they were supportive.
We just saw.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we didn't need to be like, this is his brother. Like, we get it.
Yeah. And they never come back up, so, like, what's the point? The only person you even see in the trial again is, like, the sister.
Well, we see the brothers, I think, maybe not throughout the trial, but, like, they're in the hospital room.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if now I'm, like, the
They added people in the hospital room, too, though, so I was very confused. Like, there were people that it wasn't just brothers.
Yeah, well, I assumed it was, like, maybe the spouses of the brothers or something. But there's that one brother who starts crying over it, and I was like, maybe they just... We want to make sure this is a brother that we know it is, and it's like, oh, we're paranoid that is this another boyfriend? Are we going to confuse the audience?
Yeah. So another there have been a few very big cases of HIV and AIDS in like 80s and 90s. There was Freddie Mercury, Eazy-E, which caused quite the ruckus in both black and white communities because it was a straight person who unknowingly got AIDS. But it's crazy to think that some of those happened after this movie, and we're still such big news stories.
And like this movie
so surprising.
In that sense, is like the movie prescient? Is it like before its time, like ahead of its time?
Yeah, I mean, it's also interesting that it won an Academy Award, and still there, like you think that it would be seen by more people, and these things wouldn't be as shocking. But we were also talking about how it was interesting to watch this now because of online dating, right? And you'll see like feel the burn signs and all kinds of things about getting STD checks and how common that's supposed to be now, or unfortunately how common it is to contract STDs with online dating and things like that.
It's so much a part of life now.
Yes,
and there's almost we haven't gotten to the point where there's completely no judgment for people who have this thing, but we're at the point where people can be like, hi, and I have this, and Do
you know that there are dating sites for people with STDs?
Yes.
Specific ones. So, it is something that, people are trying to, live with and work around, and people are being more supportive of that, but it's still a stigma. It's still,
it's definitely not treated in the way where it's is it the...
It's still misinformed. It's still misinformation that's causing this, and, a lack of, I don't know. But
I still feel like there's a lack of empathy for this, because you got yourself into it. Yeah. Which is what the whole argument with the defense's side, or the prosecution side.
From risky behavior.
Side. Yeah.
But what I'm getting at is, there's still a lot of people who don't know how you get AIDS. That might have had it even at, other STDs. They think that you can get it way easier, or, there's some people who think that, you could get herpes from ways that you don't actually get herpes. There's just a lot, because there's just, it's not something that people want to talk about. There's still a lot of confusion, and confusion leads to, mistakes, risky behavior.
So I feel like we're building to kind of a I mean, it was always going to be
cut
this.
that part out.
No. It was always
too heavy.
It was always going to be this kind of an ending when
Yeah.
we're talking about Philadelphia of all movies.
Yeah.
But it feels like we're building this point where it's like this movie was like it has a lot of really great things to say, but it kind of like we're still dealing with it.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, it's still saying them. Like, that's why it was so powerful, I think.
Yeah.
Is because it's like, wow, this is, like, did you not feel like you've stereotyped and discriminated against some people while you watched that movie? I did.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's called to times, like, in the past where it's just like, shit.
Yeah, exactly. And I've seen this before.
Yeah. Oh, man. It's a heavy movie, guys.
Yeah.
It's a great movie, I would say.
It's a great movie. I mean,
hard movie to watch.
There aren't a lot of courtroom dramas that aren't thrillers.
Yeah, and this is definitely
just a courtroom drama,
a standing example of not that.
Yeah. It's also really is one of Denzel's better roles.
Yeah, I would say one of Tom Hanks' better roles. We didn't even talk about Mary Steenburgen.
Oh yes,
she's fantastic as kind of the villain, or at least the face of the villain.
Demi's main girl. Yes, I mean
so
fantastic.
Good. Of course, I've loved her since Back to the Future Part 3.
Yeah,
and she's wonderful now and in everything. But
still on TV in Last Man on Earth.
Yeah,
still on TV.
Still sexy.
Yeah. Ageless. I mean, she's been. Honestly, she...
Did you say ageless or ageless?
Ageless, both.
Both, God willing.
She really has made quite the name for herself as a comedy actress, right?
Yeah.
Like, she's been on some, like, 30 Rock. She was amazing.
Big on 30 Rock. She's on Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah,
yeah. No,
so it was interesting to see her play the villain, because I remember that she could be, like... I'm pretty sure she's been, like, the bad mom in some movies and stuff. And things like that, but it's been quite a while.
Such a range. Like, everybody, all the heavy hitters, like, Hanks is a range, Denzel is a range, Steenburgen, big range. It's great cast.
Yeah, I mean, Jason Robards, the Wheeler guy, great. The main defendant, great.
He's that right kind of despicable, and then there's that humanity. Like, he shows a lot of range, too, in this movie specifically.
Yeah, I mean, he genuinely feels bad when... Becca gives him such a glowing review. Yeah. You know, which is just great.
Yeah. That's like the perfect way to piss someone off.
Yeah, exactly.
And the fucking Malcolm in the Middle guy, he's on the jury. Fucking Cougar from Seinfeld.
Yeah,
Cougar.
That was interesting to me. I thought he would play I thought he was going to side with them more. There was that one thing with like joking, like that nod, and I was like, I didn't really come back.
I think that comes back to, and I think we'll use this to wrap up, how the filmmaking techniques... where it's a lot of point of view and a lot of we're staring into the camera. It's making the audience the jury
feel how the defendant or the guy on the witness stand could maybe
and like and most of most of the audience of this movie at that time was probably like, gay people are disgusting. We should throw them in a latrine after we've all pissed in it. So like that's when
I forgot about that line. Oh my God.
It's dark. I mean. And the juror, the guy we're talking about, Kruger from Seinfeld, I can't remember his real name. May he rest in peace. He's like smiling and like totally agreeing. So it's setting him up like, oh, this is going to be the guy who's like, we're not going to do it. But I love that he comes out and he's practical about it.
Yes.
And I mean, obviously, this is the optimistic hope that this movie will show the compassion that this juror has, that the audience will gain towards all these people.
Yeah.
And hopefully, I mean, we've gotten a lot better. We're still not great.
I guess there's a way to lighten this up a little bit, right? Like, did that movie not make you feel like the justice system works?
Yeah, I think actually that's a great thing, because it comes down to what the movie's about, and obviously it's got all these topics, but I think Hank says it, like kind of his last thing he says when he's on stage, or on a stand. He goes, it's about justice, because sometimes... It's not sometimes that the system works, but like to be a part of having justice done.
Yeah, that's what he said. His favorite thing about being a lawyer was that sometimes you get to be a part of justice.
Yeah, and I think it's like, yes, sometimes, most of the time it doesn't, but sometimes, yes, the system, the rules we have, that we have written and we've built a whole country on, they're intended to help people. They're intended to work, and sometimes we do make change.
Yeah.
And, I think that's the best way to look at the movie.
It really is. I mean, it's an inspiring movie. It's a deep movie, but it's a very inspiring movie.
Well, and like that's the thing you hear about a lot of Oscar baity films. But like, I think it's legitimately about powerful issues, has great performances, and yes, it's inspiring.
Yeah, unlikely friendships. It's got a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And with that being the main dynamic is like, let's have the buddy dynamic, which is like they don't get along and then they come together. It's like, what a beautiful version of that.
Yeah, I mean, when he says goodbye to Antonio Banderas in the hallway, we started this movie where Denzel wouldn't even touch the guy. Now he's like hugging his boyfriend. Totally fine with the lifestyle and everything, which is very interesting.
And it's heartbreaking because Denzel's saying goodbye to him. And he keeps saying, "I'll see you tomorrow. I'll see you next time." And he knows he'll never see him again.
I'm gonna keep that one though in the bank. That is a slick move. If you ever meet someone on the deathbed, to be honest. See you tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's
it's kind of the coward's way out.
Dude, I feel like half the people in that situation, half the people in the bed want to take the coward's way out.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I imagine myself in the bed and be like, "You're not going to see me again. This is it."
Yeah.
Because I would be that dick. Still in death. I would force you to feel bad.
I would be in denial.
I would probably take the coward's way out, too.
I would just be in absolute denial.
Well, hopefully you've enjoyed this podcast. We're going to take the coward's way out now.
Yeah.
And stop talking about heavy stuff. Joe, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me on the show, man.
This is wonderful. Yeah. Where can people find you? What do you want them to look at, listen to, anything?
Check us out, Hoodworks Films on Facebook and YouTube. May 1st, we're going to have our first stuff out. Actually, our host here is the lead in our first project.
It's pretty good. Another thing about some discrimination.
Some discrimination.
It's kind of thematically appropriate.
Exactly.
So, no Tom Hanks in The Sandlot, but if you love The Sandlot...
Yeah, you might like this one.
Check out Hoodworks. All right. That's our discussion for this week. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a little something about Philadelphia or just about maybe the 90s in general or perhaps even the world around you. I know I had a great time. Thanks again to Joe. If you want to follow the podcast, you know where to go. At TomHanksPod. Email us with your thoughts on the movies and other stuff you could talk about that's Hanks related to TomHanksPod@gmail.com. You can find me anywhere and everywhere at any time of day at Elvis Coonish on Twitter, Instagram, and all sorts of things. Check out our YouTube page, youtube.com/Splot Studios for some Hanks related and non-Hanks related stuff. And for next week, we invite you back to solve a mystery. The mystery of the weirdest hair choice we've ever seen. That's right, it's finally time we crack the Da Vinci Code. Until next time, thanks for listening.
Tom Hanks is a friend you can turn to when cold winds blow. And then you'll know, now and forever, a friend in this world.